You do not wake up. You hatch. The world is a muffled, percussive prison of shell, and your first act of free will is to violently smash your way out of it. There is no gentle rocking, no cooing from a loving parent. There is only the frantic, biological imperative to break your cage before you suffocate in it. Your tiny horn, a pathetic nub of keratin on your nose, becomes a chisel. You hammer and scrape against the leathery interior, driven by an instinct you don't understand. The air that finally floods in is not sweet relief. It's a hot, wet blanket of compost and decay. You tumble out, slick with embryonic fluid, into a world of oppressive heat and buzzing insects the size of small birds. Your eyes, blinking, see only a chaotic jumble of writhing siblings, all engaged in the same desperate scramble for existence. This is your birth, a clumsy, panicked, and profoundly undignified explosion into reality. Ah, yes. Consciousness returns to the late Cretaceous's most over-engineered dead end. It's you. Official designation, Triceratops horridus. That last part, horridus, doesn't mean horrid in the sense of being unpleasant, though your life certainly will be. It means bristling or rough, a rare moment of accidental poetry from the same field of study that would one day mistake your horns for those of a giant, extinct bison. But you are known to the future simply as Triceratops, which translates to three-horned face. A name that is both clinically accurate and insultingly simplistic, like calling a great white shark pointy-toothed fish. It completely fails to capture the essence of your existence, which is that of a 9-ton walking fortress whose primary purpose is to participate in a series of escalating biological failures. This is your story. And I'm sorry to say, it doesn't have a happy ending. It doesn't really have a happy middle either. The beginning, as you're currently experiencing, is a fetid nightmare. Let's start with your nursery. It's not a cozy den. It's a pile of rotting plants. Your mother, a creature of immense size and a brain no bigger than a modestly sized root vegetable, scraped it together, laid her clutch of a dozen or so eggs, and is now treating the whole affair with the emotional investment of a vending machine. Her job was to produce potential offspring. The quality control is up to you. The heat from the decomposing vegetation serves as a crude incubator, meaning you're quite literally born in garbage. The smell is astounding. It's the smell of life and death locked in a sweaty, eternal embrace. This isn't a cradle of love. It's a buffet platter, slowly warming under the humid Cretaceous sun. The first danger you face isn't a predator. It's family. You and your 11 siblings are all driven by the same 3-point survival plan. Get out, get food, and do not, under any circumstances, be the slowest one. You scramble over each other, a writhing knot of infantile panic. One of your brothers, let's call him Clutchmate #4, stumbles. He is immediately trampled by Clutchmate 9, who is in turn shoved aside by you. This isn't malice. It's physics. It's efficiency. There's no time for sentiment when the very air buzzes with things that consider you a nutritious, bite-sized morsel. Your mother watches this from a distance, chewing on a cycad leaf. She regards your struggle with the deep, placid indifference of a mountain. If a small scavenger were to dart in and snatch one of you, she would not intervene. It's not worth the calories. You are a statistic. Your parents didn't hope for you. They hoped for at least one of you to survive the first week. You are the biological equivalent of a bulk email campaign. A staggering failure rate is baked into the model. The world outside the nest is a hostile, green hell. Your name is Hell Creek, Montana, though you have no concept of names or places. You only have a concept of here, which is a vast, swampy floodplain of towering ferns, strange flowers, and trees that look like they were designed by a committee of madmen. The air is thick, soupy, and filled with the omnipresent drone of insects and the distant, bowel-loosening roars of creatures you have not yet had the misfortune to meet. Your first walk is a chaotic stumble through this alien landscape. You and your surviving siblings are herded into a crash, a sort of mobile daycare for the doomed. An older female, perhaps an aunt or a less than enthusiastic cousin, is tasked with babysitting this nervous gaggle of horn-faced toddlers. Her primary defensive strategy is to look intimidating and hope for the best. Your main adversaries are, to put it simply, everything that isn't you. Small, feathered theropods, no bigger than turkeys, but with a decidedly more carnivorous disposition, flit through the undergrowth. They are the background radiation of your childhood, a constant, low-level threat. They will pick off the weak, the distracted, the one who wanders off to investigate an interesting-looking beetle. They teach you your first and most important lesson. Curiosity kills the Triceratops. But they are merely the opening act. The main event, the monster that haunts your every waking moment, is a creature that is also young, dumb, and full of terrifying energy. It is the juvenile Tyrannosaurus rex. This isn't the 40-foot-long, 9-ton behemoth of museum halls and blockbuster films. Not yet. The one hunting you is a lanky, awkward teenager. It's all legs and teeth, a fast, graceless killing machine that is still figuring out how all its parts work. And you are its training wheels. Your creche is its practice arena. Its hunting strategy is unsophisticated but brutally effective. It sprints into your midst, causing an explosion of pure panic, and simply grabs whichever one of you is slowest to react. This is how you learn speed. You learn it by watching your sibling, clutch mate #2, get snatched up in a cloud of dust and fern fronds, his panicked squeals abruptly silenced. Your only real survival strategy is the huddle. When danger approaches, you and your little band of brothers and sisters instinctively bunch together into a tight, defensive ball. The idea, presumably, is that the wall of tiny frills and protruding nose horns will present a confusing and unappetizing target. It's a Cretaceous-era display of collective bargaining. The modern analogy would be a group of tourists realizing they've wandered into a bad neighborhood. They cluster together, look around nervously, and hope their sheer collective awkwardness will act as a deterrent. Sometimes it works. Often, it just creates a convenient single-location snack bar for a determined predator. Your only personal contribution to this strategy is to ensure you are always in the middle of the huddle, using the bodies of your siblings as a fleshy, disposable shield. Learning the ropes of being a Triceratops is a masterclass in clumsy failure. You must learn the signature move, the charge. Your first few attempts are pathetic. You lower your head, paw the ground, and sprint forward with all the grace of a runaway refrigerator. You trip over roots, you run headfirst into a tree, stunning yourself and earning what feels like the silent, derisive judgment of the surrounding flora. You attempt to intimidate a small mammal, which simply scurries up a branch, leaving you to charge harmlessly into the empty space where it used to be. You are a walking tank, but you have the turning radius of a cargo ship and the coordination of a toddler on ice skates. Your education is paid for in bruises and humiliation. You learn to recognize the call of a hunting raptor, but only because you witnessed the consequences of clutch mate #6 failing to do so. His panicked shriek was a far more effective lesson than any parental guidance could ever be. Your life is a series of near misses and vicarious lessons written in the blood of your less fortunate kin. Somehow, against all statistical probability, you survive. The awkward juvenile phase gives way to a lumbering, powerful adulthood. The years of running from lanky teenage tyrants are over. You are now 9 tons of condensed muscle, bone, and profound grumpiness. Your brow horns, once little more than bony spikes, are now 3-foot-long spears of solid bone, sharp enough to puncture the abdomen of the very predator you used to fear. Your frill, that ridiculous-looking head shield, has blossomed into a magnificent, solid bone billboard that communicates a single, unambiguous message. Do not touch. You have, by all metrics, made it. Life, for the first time, achieves a state that could almost be described as stable. It is, however, a stability built on a foundation of mind-numbing monotony. Your days are now defined by a single activity: eating. You are a bulk-processing herbivore, a living lawnmower designed to convert vast quantities of tough, fibrous plant matter into more Triceratops. You spend hours upon hours each day shuffling through the fern prairies, methodically shearing off cycads and palm fronds with your powerful beak. You chew, and you chew, and you chew. Your teeth are a marvel of biological engineering, a constantly replenishing dental battery that replaces old, worn teeth with new ones. This is fortunate, because you will spend the majority of your waking life grinding down tough, unappetizing vegetation. This is the peak of your existence. This is your reward for surviving the brutal gauntlet of youth. You have won the ultimate prize, the freedom to graze in relative peace. Enjoy it. It is the last truly simple problem you will ever have. Just as you settle into this comfortable rhythm of chewing and digesting, the universe, in its infinite capacity for cruel irony, introduces a new and far more vexing problem. It is not a bigger, meaner predator. It's you. Or rather, it's others just like you. The very features that made you an unappealing target for a Tyrannosaurus, your massive horns and shield-like frill, are not primarily for defense. That is a convenient secondary benefit. Their true purpose is for something far more pointless and destructive: impressing females and fighting other males. Suddenly, your peaceful life of endless grazing is punctuated by brutal, head-to-head combat. Another male wanders into your preferred patch of ferns, and a switch is flipped. There is no negotiation. There is only posturing, bellowing, and the inevitable, violent clash of titans. These are not the noble duels you might see in a museum diorama. They are clumsy, ugly shoving matches. You lock horns with your rival, bone grinding against bone. You push, strain, and twist, your immense neck muscles screaming in protest. The goal is not necessarily to kill, but to dominate, to inflict enough pain and exhaustion that your opponent gives up and lumbers away in disgrace. The aftermath is never glorious. You win the fight, but your prize is a split brow horn that will ache for weeks, a deep gouge in your frill that will likely get infected, and the sheer, debilitating exhaustion that comes from pushing 9 tons of angry reptile against another 9 tons of equally angry reptile. And for what? For the brief, undignified, and mechanically awkward opportunity to mate with a female who is watching the whole pathetic spectacle with an expression of complete disinterest. After the act is done, she wanders off, as indifferent to you as your own mother was on the day you were born. You are left bleeding, aching, and standing in a trampled patch of ferns that you no longer even feel like eating. You have traded the terror of being hunted for the pointless, recurring agony of territorial pride. Congratulations on your promotion. The job sucks. The years of being a walking, battering ram take their inevitable toll. The slow, creeping betrayal of old age begins. It's not a sudden event, but a gradual erosion of the power you once took for granted. The joints in your massive legs, which have carried 9 tons of you for millions of steps, begin to ache with a dull, persistent throb. The great horn on your left brow, cracked in a meaningless shoving match a decade ago, sends a sharp, stabbing pain through your skull whenever the air grows damp. Your magnificent dental batteries, once the pinnacle of herbivorous efficiency, are nearing the end of their replacement cycle. The new teeth that emerge are weaker, less effective. Chewing, the central activity of your entire adult life, becomes a laborious chore. You can't process food as well, can't extract as much energy from the tough plants you need to survive. You are becoming weaker, slower, and the entire world seems to notice. Your status within the herd, a concept built entirely on physical dominance, plummets. Younger, stronger males, their horns unscarred and their muscles burning with pointless vigor, now push you away from the choicest patches of ferns. There is no respect for your age, no deference to your experience. In the brutal calculus of the Cretaceous, experience is just another word for worn out. You are no longer a titan to be feared. You are a geriatric obstacle to be shoved aside. The females of the herd, who were never particularly interested in you in the first place, now ignore you completely. You have become invisible, a ghost haunting the edges of the group, subsisting on tougher, less nutritious plants that the others have left behind. Your final confrontation is not the glorious, cinematic battle you might imagine. It is not a noble last stand against your lifelong nemesis, the mighty Tyrannosaurus Rex. The healthy adult T-Rex, the one that would have seen you in your prime as a dangerous and unpredictable meal, a 9-ton slab of meat armed with 3 spears, still largely ignores you. But its children, or perhaps a more desperate, opportunistic adult, they see you differently now. They see you for what you truly are: old, slow, and isolated. Your final challenge is not an alpha predator. It is a pragmatic scavenger who has done the math and realized you are finally a low-risk investment. It comes for you at dusk, when the light is failing and your eyesight is at its worst. It is not a dramatic charge, but a patient, stalking approach. It circles you, testing your defenses. You put on the old show. You lower your head, you scrape your foot on the dusty ground. You let out a guttural bellow that sounds more like a tired groan than a fearsome threat. You try to turn, to keep your formidable horns pointed at the danger, but your movements are sluggish. Your aching joints protest. The explosive power you once had is gone, replaced by a deep, world-weary fatigue. The predator is in no hurry. It has seen this 100 times before. It knows it has all the time in the world. Your world. Your end is not a single, clean killing bite. It's a messy, humiliating war of attrition that you were always destined to lose. A bite to the flank that you are too slow to counter. A lunge at a hind leg that cripples you. You are brought down, exhausted and bleeding, not in a blaze of glory, but with the pathetic finality of a machine that has simply run out of parts. Your last sight is not of your victorious herd or a setting sun. It is the vast, empty, indifferent sky of a world that was there long before you and will be there long after your bones have turned to stone. And just as your consciousness fades into the great silent blackness miles away in a stinking mound of rotting vegetation, a leathery eggshell begins to wobble. A tiny, damp horn punches through the surface. A new life, a new clutchmate #7, tumbles out into the warm, fetid air to begin its own identical, arduous, and ultimately futile journey. The universe doesn't even blink. The cycle resets, not out of malice, but out of a profound and soul-crushing indifference. So, congratulations. You were a Triceratops horridus, one of the most successful and abundant large animals of your time, which is just a more scientific way of saying you got to experience the full, unabridged biological tragedy from its miserable beginning to its pointless end. It doesn't suck because you went extinct. It sucked the whole time. So, that's your life. A short, by geological standards, brutal and deeply unrewarding cycle of eating, fighting, and avoiding being eaten. You'd think that would be enough. To live and die and be done with it. To have your bones buried and your story finished. To slowly, over the course of millions of years, dissolve back into the planet that so grudgingly hosted you. But you, Triceratops, drew the cosmic short straw. You weren't destined for the quiet dignity of oblivion. Your personal tragedy wasn't over when your heart stopped. In fact, it was just entering a new, even more absurd phase. Because 66 million years after you had the decency to die, after an asteroid cleansed the planet of you and everything like you, your bones were discovered by the planet's most problematic, self-obsessed, and relentlessly creative ape. And that's when your story went from a biological tragedy to a historical farce. For millions upon millions of years, you are nothing. You are rock. Your bones, saturated with minerals, have become stone, locked deep within the sedimentary layers of what will one day be called North America. You are a secret kept by the earth. Then, the slow, patient work of erosion and the restless curiosity of a new kind of animal conspire to bring you back into the light. A flash flood carves a new channel through a dry ravine. A curious hand, belonging to a bipedal mammal wrapped in animal skins, brushes away the dirt. And there you are. Or, at least, part of you. It's your skull. 3 feet wide, a solid shield of bone, with 2 great horns arching over the eye sockets and a third, smaller one on your nose. The creature who finds you has no frame of reference. It has no concept of deep time, of evolution, of extinction. It looks at your fossilized head and sees the only thing it can see, a monster. It does not see an herbivore, a herd animal, a creature that spent most of its life chewing plants. It sees the physical proof of its darkest legends. It sees the remains of a demon slain by the ancient gods. It sees the skull of a great, malevolent beast that once roamed a mythological world. In that single moment of discovery, You are not resurrected. You are recast. Your entire existence is immediately and irrevocably hijacked to serve as a prop in someone else's story. You are instantly cast as the villain in the burgeoning mythology of humanity, a convenient monster to explain the fears that lurk just beyond the safety of their campfire. Your grand re-entry into the world of the living isn't as a magnificent specimen of natural history. It's as a thing that perfectly confirms some local shaman's most dramatic fever dream. Your identity is stolen before it has even been established. And once you're a myth, you're suddenly very useful. The concept of fossil doesn't exist, but magic item certainly does. A fragment of your bony frill, chipped away with a stone tool, is ground into a fine powder. It is then mixed with herbs and water and sold as a potent elixir to cure cowardice or impotence. It does not work, of course, but the placebo effect is a powerful thing, and your posthumous contribution to medicine is established as a complete fraud. The chieftain of the tribe, a man whose ego is considerably larger than his understanding of geology, sees your magnificent brow horn not as a biological tool, but as a status symbol. He and his strongest warriors spend days hacking it from your stone skull. It is then mounted on a pole above his tent, a testament to his power. He doesn't tell his people he found it in a dry riverbed. He tells them he wrestled the great, horned earth demon himself and took the horn as his prize. Your legacy, 66 million years in the making, is to be used as a stage prop to prop up the fragile authority of a primitive politician. Being worshipped, you see, is not as glamorous as it sounds. It often just means you're more valuable when you're broken into smaller, more marketable pieces. The gap between being a sacred object and being a useful resource is vanishingly small. The rest of your skeleton, the silent testament to your true form, is largely ignored. A rib bone might be shaped into a tool, a vertebra might be used as a stool, but the full picture is inconvenient. A complete skeleton would imply you were an animal, a creature that lived and breathed and ate and died, just like the deer and the bison they hunt. A giant, monstrous skull, however, is a much better story. So your reality is actively edited. They cherry-pick the parts of you that are scary, impressive, or useful, and discard the rest. Your true nature as a relatively peaceful, cow-like herd animal is overwritten. You are reimagined as a solitary, malevolent, aggressive force of nature, because it makes the chieftain's lie about fighting you sound more impressive. The ultimate cynical takeaway from this first chapter of your human-adjacent existence is that you weren't remembered. You were invented. Your first mark on human consciousness was not as a creature of wonder, but as a complete fabrication. A monster of the week for a species that was just getting started on its long and storied career of misunderstanding the natural world. Your reward for surviving the Cretaceous period, for enduring the brutalities of your own life cycle, was to have your bones serve as the foundation for a scary campfire story. Your tragic legacy, part 1, was to be a boogeyman. Countless centuries pass. Empires rise and fall. The humans who once chipped away at your bones with stones now have iron, bronze, and written languages. But you remain a myth, a confused legend. Your skull, or others like it, are occasionally unearthed. They are called the bones of dragons, the remains of griffins, or the fossilized skeletons of the giant heroes from their epic poems. You are slotted into whatever mythological framework is convenient. In one culture, you are a divine beast. In another, a demonic one. You are consistently spectacular and consistently wrong. Then, a new age dawns, one they call the Enlightenment. A new breed of human emerges, men in powdered wigs and frock coats, armed not with spears, but with rock hammers and an unshakable belief in their own intellectual superiority. They are no longer content with myths. They want to classify, to categorize, to name everything. And eventually, they find you again. This time, you don't fall into the hands of a shaman, but a paleontologist. In the year 1887, a pair of your magnificent brow horns, still attached to a piece of your skull, are unearthed in Colorado and sent to a man named Othniel Charles Marsh, one of the high priests of this new science. He examines them. He is a brilliant man, a giant in his field. and he declares, with all the confidence that a Yale professorship can bestow, that they belong to a particularly large and unusual species of extinct bison, which he names Bison alticornis. You have finally graduated from the world of myth. You are now officially a scientific blunder. After 66 million years of silence, your grand debut in the annals of science is a case of mistaken identity. They looked at the remains of one of the most unique and spectacular creatures to ever walk the earth, a 9-ton reptile with a head like a battle shield. And they thought, ah yes, a very big cow. It is, in its own way, an even greater insult than being called a demon. A demon is at least interesting. A giant cow is just a curiosity. You have been upgraded from an object of superstitious terror to an object of academic misclassification. The process is slow, but you are making your way, step by painful step, toward the truth of your own identity, even if it's a journey paved with human error. Your brief, humiliating tenure as a giant bison doesn't last long. A more complete skull is soon discovered, and Professor Marsh, to his credit, quickly realizes his mistake. He renames you, this time getting it right, Triceratops, three-horned face. But your induction into the halls of science is not a gentle, scholarly affair. You have the spectacular misfortune of being discovered right at the beginning of the Bone Wars. This was not a literal war, but a bitter, petty, and deeply personal feud between America's two leading paleontologists, the aforementioned Othniel Marsh and a man named Edward Drinker Cope. For decades, these two men waged a campaign of scientific sabotage against each other, and you, your bones, became their primary ammunition. You were no longer a myth or a misidentified cow. You were now a prize. You were a trophy to be won. The goal of paleontology in the late 19th century was not necessarily the careful reconstruction of ancient ecosystems. It was about finding bigger, more impressive, and more complete skeletons than your rival. Your bones were dynamited out of the hills of Wyoming and Montana with a shocking lack of care. Skeletons were damaged, lost, or hastily excavated by crews who were paid to bring in fossils by the ton. The imperative was speed, not science. Your remains, which had survived the immense pressures of geology for 66 million years, could barely withstand a few short years of human ambition. You had escaped the superstitions of ancient man only to fall victim to the egos of modern science. You went from being a chieftain's prop to being a professor's prop. It was a lateral move, at best. The collateral damage of this war was your dignity. In the race to mount the first Triceratops skeleton, corners were cut. Bones from different individuals were often mixed together to create a single, more complete-looking specimen. You became a chimera, a Frankenstein's monster assembled from the spare parts of your own kind, all to make for a more impressive display at the Yale Peabody Museum or the Academy of Natural Sciences in Philadelphia. Your very body became a tool for institutional bragging rights. Worse still was the reconstruction of your posture. Based on the anatomy of modern lizards, these early paleontologists depicted you in a clumsy, sprawling stance, as if you were doing a perpetual push-up. Your legs splayed out to the sides, your massive head hanging low, your belly dragging on the ground. For decades, this was your public image. Not a dynamic, powerful animal, but a shambling, overweight, and deeply awkward reptile. They took a walking fortress, a creature that could stand its ground against a Tyrannosaurus, and turned it into a clumsy, reptilian sea student. In order to build their careers, they first had to build you. And their first draft, the one that would define you in the public imagination for nearly a century, was tragically, comically wrong. The deeply ironic summary of this age is that the men who discovered you were fundamentally more interested in defeating each other than in understanding you. Your grand scientific debut was not a story of biological wonder, but a sordid tale of human pettiness, jealousy, and ambition. You were the first-place trophy in a race to the bottom, a race that scarred the landscape and permanently corrupted the early fossil record of many dinosaurs, including yourself. You had finally been found by the one species that could comprehend your magnificence, and their first instinct was to use you as a club to beat each other with. Welcome to the 20th century, and the dawn of your modern career. The bone wars are over, and the dust has settled. Science, now slightly more careful and collaborative, begins to piece together a more accurate version of you. Your posture is corrected. You are lifted up from your belly, dragging sprawl into the powerful, upright stance of an animal that was actually good at walking. You are no longer a giant cow or a clumsy lizard. You are, finally, recognized for what you were, a highly successful, magnificently adapted mega herbivore. But just as your true identity starts to come into focus, it begins to fracture. You are no longer just a scientific specimen. You are becoming a celebrity. And celebrity is a prison of its own. You enter the age of mass media. You become a star. In the 1933 film King Kong, a stop-motion version of you battles a stegosaurus in a completely inaccurate prehistoric showdown. You are depicted as a vicious, aggressive monster, a far cry from the plant-chewing herd animal you actually were. But it makes for good cinema. You are now a movie monster. A few decades later, you become a plastic toy molded in bright, friendly colors, your fearsome horns rendered soft and harmless. You are now a plaything for children. You are a character in cartoons, often a gentle, dim-witted giant who serves as the friendly muscle for a group of more anthropomorphic dinosaur heroes. You are a logo for construction companies, a mascot for sports teams, a brand name for armored vehicles. Your powerful, iconic silhouette is endlessly useful. Your identity, once misunderstood, is now splintered into 1,000 marketable pieces. There's the real you, the subject of sober scientific papers and debate among paleontologists. Then there is your evil, roaring twin in the movies. There is your cute, cuddly nephew in the gift shop. There is your tough, dependable cousin in the world of corporate branding. None of them are actually you. The complex, brutal reality of your existence, as detailed in the first part of our story, has been completely sanitized, simplified, and repackaged for popular consumption. The endless, monotonous chewing, the infected wounds from pointless fights, the constant, low-grade terror of being hunted, none of that makes for a good toy or a family-friendly cartoon. The truth of your life is inconvenient for marketing, so it is edited out. Your final and most enduring job in this new world is to sell nostalgia for a world humanity never even knew. You are the star of big-budget documentary series, complete with dramatic, speculative CGI battles. The narration, delivered in a breathless, awestruck tone, describes your fictionalized life and your epic, imagined struggles. These programs are immensely popular. They allow people to feel a sense of connection to a deep, majestic past, a lost world of natural wonder. This is, of course, deeply ironic, as it's a sense of wonder they indulge in while sitting in climate-controlled rooms, participating in a global system that is actively creating the next great mass extinction. You are used to make them feel awe for a natural world they are systematically dismantling. After a life of brutal, uncompromising realism, your posthumous existence has become one of pure fantasy. Your new purpose is to be an entertainer, a spectacle, a product. The 9-ton, irritable herbivore has been successfully transformed into a cash cow. The ultimate indignity is not just that they got you wrong for so long, but that even after they got you right, they still preferred the fictional versions. Of course, you cannot be conserved. You are 66 million years too late for that. So instead of conservation, you receive preservation, which is a very different, and in many ways, a much stranger fate. It's a prison of kindness. Your best and most complete skeletons are no longer just museum pieces for public education. They have ascended into the realm of high art and high finance. You have become an asset class. The most spectacular specimens of your kind are no longer destined for the halls of the American Museum of Natural History or the Smithsonian. They are sold at glamorous auctions at Christie's and Sotheby's. Imagine the scene. Men and women in expensive suits and jewelry, sipping champagne, gather in a brightly lit room. On a stage is your skeleton, beautifully mounted, every bone cleaned and restored. The auctioneer describes you not in terms of your paleobiology, but in terms of your rarity, your completeness, your investment potential. An icon of the Cretaceous, he might say. A magnificent trophy for the discerning collector. The bidding is fierce. People who own multinational corporations and private islands raise little paddles, adding millions of dollars to your price tag with a subtle flick of the wrist. Your bones, which once carried you through the swamps of Hell Creek, are now a speculative commodity, their value fluctuating with the whims of the global elite. The winning bidder is not a museum. It's a reclusive billionaire, or a freshly minted tech oligarch, or the investment arm of a sovereign wealth fund. And your new home is not a public hall where generations of schoolchildren could look at you with wonder. Your new home is a private vault, or the atrium of a corporate headquarters in Dubai, or the cavernous living room of a mansion in the Hollywood Hills, where you serve as the world's most ostentatious conversation piece during cocktail parties. You have been preserved by being hidden away. You have become the ultimate luxury good, a perfect, fossilized icon of a lost world that only the very, very rich are now privileged to own. This is what their reverence looks like. It looks like a price tag. It looks like a bill of sale. The collateral damage of this new age of sentimental hypocrisy is the final erasure of your context. When you are an exhibit in a museum, you are part of a story about evolution, ecosystems, and deep time. When you are a decoration in a billionaire's mansion, you are just a thing. A very large, very expensive, very impressive thing. You are stripped of your scientific meaning and reduced to your aesthetic value. The tourists who once stared at you through glass in a museum are now replaced by caterers and housekeepers who dust your fossilized toes. You are a living museum exhibit for your destroyer's descendants, a monument to their wealth and power, a symbol that they can own not just the future, but the very distant past as well. What is the ultimate, most profound irony of your modern existence? It's that after your life, your world, and the accuracy of your own memory were taken from you, humanity now pats itself on the back for creating a semi-accurate computer-generated model of you for a virtual reality experience. They celebrate bringing you back to life in a digital cage that they can sell for $29.99, while your actual, physical remains are traded between anonymous billionaires like a piece of abstract art. They have finally perfected the process of loving you without having to engage with the messy, inconvenient truth of what you actually were. They have managed to turn one of the most magnificent creatures in the planet's history into an object, a brand, and a financial instrument. And so we arrive at your final, tragic legacy, the finale. After surviving one of the most brutal ecosystems the world has ever known, after standing your ground against the most fearsome predator to ever live, after enduring a cataclysmic asteroid impact that boiled the skies and shook the very continents, your eternal rest was disturbed so that you could be sold to the highest bidder. You didn't just die. You didn't just go extinct. You were commodified. You were downsized into merchandise, sanitized for entertainment, and ultimately privatized. And that, more than any asteroid, more than any T-Rex, is the ultimate, most profound, and most enduring indignity. Let us return to the brutal honesty of your own time. The world of commodities and auctions is a fever dream 66 million years in the future. The world of real, physical consequences is now. The young, foolish part of your life is over, and you have entered the long, tedious plateau of adulthood. Your days, once filled with the sharp terror of being hunted, are now filled with the dull ache of existence. The primary driver of your life is no longer fear, but hunger. An endless, gnawing hunger that can only be satisfied by consuming hundreds of pounds of tough, low-quality vegetation every single day. You are a walking fermentation vat, a mobile silo, and your entire consciousness is bent towards the next meal. You wander through vast groves of cycads, their fronds tough and fibrous. You use your powerful, shearing beak to snip off huge mouthfuls, which you then process with the dental batteries lining your jaws. It is a noisy, messy, and thoroughly unglamorous process. You are not a discerning gourmand. You are a bulk processor. You eat what is available, what is plentiful, and what other, smaller herbivores cannot handle. This is your ecological niche, your job in the grand scheme of the Cretaceous. You are the clear cutter. You prevent the landscape from being overgrown with the hardiest of plants. It is a vital role, but like most vital roles, it is thankless and profoundly boring. The vistas you see are not majestic prehistoric landscapes. They are potential calories. That towering conifer is not an object of beauty. It's several days' worth of chewing. The false sense of security that this routine builds is the cruelest trick of all. Because you are so large, so well armed, and so focused on your next meal, you begin to believe you are the master of your domain. A fully grown Tyrannosaurus rex is a rare sight, and even when one does appear, it is often a cautious encounter. The predator sizes you up, notes your meter-long brow horns, calculates the risk of being gored, and often decides to move on in search of easier, less pointy prey. These encounters, where you successfully stare down the tyrant lizard king, build a fatal sense of confidence. You are the immovable object. You are the unassailable fortress. This is a lie you tell yourself, a comforting fiction to mask the truth that you are, and always will be, on the menu. The real sucky problem that emerges, the one that truly defines the misery of your adult life, is the constant, low-level warfare with your own kind. The threat of a T-Rex is a terrifying but infrequent spike of adrenaline. The threat of another male Triceratops is a chronic, grinding source of stress, injury, and pointless energy expenditure. They are your true rivals. You are not fighting for survival in these contests. You are fighting for status. You are fighting for the transient right to pass on your genes, a biological imperative that brings you nothing but pain. A younger male, full of the same stupid vigor you once had, challenges you for a particularly lush patch of ferns. He is not your enemy. He eats the same food, fears the same predators, and shares 99.9% of your DNA. But he is in your way, and so you must fight. The ritual is always the same. First, the display. You face off, bobbing your massive, frilled heads, showing off the size of your horns, the vibrancy of your shield. It's a silent negotiation, a visual argument over who is the superior specimen. Sometimes, this is enough. The smaller, less confident male will back down, conceding defeat without a single blow. But often, it is not. Pride, or perhaps simple stupidity, takes over. The charge is explosive. Two 9-ton bodies collide with a sickening crunch of bone and horn. You lock together, a tangled mess of muscle and rage. This is not a fencing match. It's a bar fight. You shove, you twist, you try to gain leverage to land a non-lethal but deeply painful blow to your opponent's flank or shoulder. The air is filled with guttural groans and the sound of stress bone. You might win. You might drive the challenger off. But you will not emerge unscathed. You will carry the scars of these victories for the rest of your life. A chipped horn that never quite grows back right. A network of scar tissue on your face. A perpetually sore shoulder. You defend your territory only to find that the prize is a collection of permanent injuries. And all the while, the females you are supposedly fighting over graze peacefully nearby, utterly unimpressed by this display of testosterone-fueled idiocy. This is the ironic twist of your adulthood. You spend your youth developing the perfect defense against the horrors of the outside world, only to reach maturity and discover that the most persistent and damaging threat comes from within. Your magnificent horns and frill are less a shield against predators and more a uniform for a pointless internecine war. Your life becomes a cycle not of seasons, but of pointless confrontations. You graze, you digest, you fight, you heal, and you graze again. The false peak of your power is simply the entry into a lifetime of painful, repetitive, and ultimately meaningless conflict with your own brothers and cousins. The burden of being king is the tedious, endless duty of reminding everyone else that you are the king, a job that slowly grinds you down to dust. And the decline, when it comes, feels both sudden and eternal. It begins in your teeth. The dental battery, that conveyor belt of chompers, finally starts to falter. The replacement teeth are not as strong. Some fail to erupt at all, leaving you with painful gaps. Chewing, the one thing you were built to do, becomes an agony. You can no longer process the tough cycads efficiently, and you are forced to seek out softer, less common vegetation. This brings you into more frequent conflict with other herbivores. and even with younger members of your own kind who see you as a weak, old fool encroaching on their territory. Then, the arthritis sets in. It starts in the joints of your forelimbs, the ones that absorb the impact of countless charges and shoving matches. A dull ache becomes a sharp, grinding pain. You become slower, less agile. Getting up from a resting position is a monumental effort, a slow, groaning process that leaves you vulnerable. Your once proud, powerful gait is reduced to a stiff, shuffling limp. You are a fortress, yes, but your foundations are crumbling from within. Your status in the herd dissolves completely. You are no longer a rival to be challenged, but an obstacle to be ignored. You are shoved away from the best water sources, forced to the dangerous periphery of the migrating group. You are a living ghost, a preview of the fate that awaits them all, and they want nothing to do with you. This isolation is the cruelest cut. You are a herd animal, and your safety has always been in numbers. Now, you are a herd of one. The final confrontation, when it comes, is an act of profound indignity. It is not the great tyrant king that seeks you out. It is a pack of smaller, smarter predators. Something like a Triceratops. They are fast, intelligent, and equipped with sickle claws that can slice through your tough hide. In your prime, you could have scattered them with a single, aggressive charge. Now, they see you for what you are. A slow, wounded, isolated target. They harry you for hours. They are patient. They dart in, slashing at your flanks and hind legs, then retreating before you can bring your sluggish horns to bear. It is a death by 1,000 cuts. You turn and turn, a great, slow pivot of desperation, but they are always where your horns are not. Exhaustion is their greatest ally. You grow tired. Your aching joints scream. Your breath comes in ragged gasps. Eventually, you stumble, and they are on you in an instant. Your final moments are a chaos of pain and helplessness, a messy, ignominious end for a creature that once commanded such presence. You are brought down not by a titan, but by a committee of opportunistic assassins who had the simple wisdom to wait for you to get old. As your vision darkens, the final punchline of your life becomes clear. Your strength was temporary, but your vulnerability was permanent. And the loop resets. Your carcass, stripped bare by scavengers, will eventually be covered by mud and silt. Your bones will begin their long, slow journey to becoming stone, waiting for the clueless apes of the distant future. But the biological story does not wait. At the very moment your life is extinguished, a new clutch of eggs is hatching. A new generation of you, utterly unaware of your personal tragedy, begins its own journey. The same fears, the same struggles, the same pointless victories and agonizing decline await them. Your life was not a unique story. It was a single, forgettable stanza in an epic poem of futility, a poem that the universe is writing over and over again. Let's fast forward through the eons, past the age of mythical monsters and scientific squabbles. Let's enter the modern world, the age of digital resurrection and sentimental hypocrisy. Here, in the 21st century, you have been fully discovered. Science has given you a weight, a height, a likely diet, and a posture that is, for now, considered accurate. But this scientific you is the least popular version of yourself. It is a creature of data points and academic papers. The you that truly exists in the modern world is a brand. Your first impression in this new era is not as an animal, but as a problem to be solved for the entertainment industry. How do we make you look cool on screen? How do we make your roar sound impressive, even though you almost certainly didn't roar? How do we choreograph your fight with the T-Rex to be as dramatic as possible, even if such encounters were likely rare and indecisive? You are a special effect, a collection of pixels and sound files designed to elicit a specific emotional response from a paying audience. You are no longer a creature. You are content. Worse, perhaps, is your transformation into a character for children. You are defanged, declawed, and debrutalized. Your 9-ton, irritable self is replaced by a friendly, gentle giant. Your horns become cartoonish accessories. Your complex life of survival is reduced to simple morality plays about friendship and teamwork. The reality of your existence, The trampling of siblings, the indifferent parenting, the bloody mating battles, is carefully airbrushed from the record. This sanitized version of you is infinitely more profitable. It can be molded into plastic toys, printed on lunchboxes, and featured in cheerful, unthreatening video games. Your final job, the one you hold in perpetuity, is to be cute. Your usefulness in this modern age is to inspire a very specific and very marketable form of guilt-free wonder. Humanity, having largely conquered the natural world, now feels a vague sense of nostalgia for the very wilderness it has destroyed. You are a perfect symbol for this. You represent a world that was bigger, wilder, and more authentic. By watching a documentary about you, by buying a toy of you, people can feel a momentary connection to that lost world without any of the actual danger or discomfort. You are a safe monster. You are a theme park version of the sublime. The most absurd part of this new purpose is how you are used to educate. Museums and documentary filmmakers pride themselves on bringing you back to life. They create stunningly realistic CGI models of you, showing you walking, eating, and fighting. They celebrate their own technical prowess in resurrecting your image. But this resurrection is a profound act of necrophilia. They are animating a corpse to make it perform for them. They are so proud of creating an accurate digital puppet that they forget the puppet is a stand-in for a creature whose reality was infinitely more complex and tragic than any animation could capture. You are a spectacle in a zoo of ghosts, a living, breathing symbol of a past that humanity is simultaneously fascinated by and utterly disconnected from. This prison of kindness, this sentimental preservation, is the final chapter of your story with humanity. What does conservation feel like from your perspective? Well, you are beyond it. But for your legacy, it feels like being captured, dissected, misinterpreted, commodified, and finally, put on a pedestal by the very same species responsible for the whole mess. The tourists, the cameras, the hushed tones of reverence in a museum hall, it is all a performance. It is a ritual for your destroyer's descendants to make themselves feel better. They look at your mighty skeleton and feel a sense of awe, but also a sense of superiority. Look what used to be, they think. Look what we have overcome. You are a yardstick against which they measure their own progress. The ultimate collateral damage is the final death of your truth. In the ancient world, your truth was replaced by myth. In the age of discovery, it was replaced by scientific error and academic rivalry. In the modern world, it is drowned in a sea of commercial kitsch. The banal, difficult, and often boring reality of your life has been deemed unmarketable. So it has been replaced with a highlight reel of speculative battles and a gift shop full of plush toys. The prison of kindness is a prison of simplification. They preserve you by erasing you. They love you by refusing to truly know you. And so, we arrive at the final, most profound punchline of your long and tragic relationship with humanity. After taking everything, your world, your life, your bones, your identity, they now spend millions of dollars to keep your memory alive in a cage. A physical cage of glass and steel for your bones, and a digital cage of pixels and merchandise for your ghost. They do this not for you, but for them. It is the ultimate act of sentimental hypocrisy. It allows them to mourn your passing while profiting from your image. It allows them to feel a sense of wonder at your existence, while continuing the very behaviors that ensure no creature like you will ever walk the earth again. Your final legacy is not one of majesty, but of marketability. You are a testament not to the power of nature, but to the power of human beings to absorb everything, even the deep past, into their own narrative of self-importance in commerce. The final, cynical truth is that you are a magnificent creature, a survivor of a brutal world, a true titan of your time. And your reward was to have your story end not with a bang, but with a price tag. To be forever remembered not as you were, but as they need you to be. A monster, a lesson, a product, and above all, a ghost that haunts the halls of their own self-congratulatory museums. This entire farce is built on the bones of your actual, arduous life. Consider the sheer absurdity. You endured a childhood where your siblings were little more than mobile shields against lanky, teenage tyrannosaurs. You survived to adulthood only to engage in pointless, skull-cracking demolition derbies with your own relatives over mating rights that were, at best, fleeting and undignified. Your peak existence was a monotonous marathon of chewing fibrous, unappetizing plants. Your decline was a slow, painful slide into arthritic weakness, ending in the humiliation of being brought down not by a worthy titan, but by a pack of smaller, more efficient predators. This was your reality, a grim, unglamorous cycle of survival and decay. And what has humanity done with this tragic opera? They have turned it into a matinee performance for children. They have taken your life, a masterpiece of biological hardship, and edited it for content. They cut out the boring parts, the endless chewing. They cut out the gruesome parts, the infected wounds, and the messy, undignified death. They leave only the cool parts, the speculative roars, the dramatic but physically impossible charges, the epic showdowns that likely never happened with such cinematic flair. They have taken your life story and given it the Hollywood treatment, complete with a heroic arc you never experienced and a noble sacrifice you never made. The truth of your existence has been buried a second time, not under sediment, but under a mountain of simplified, sentimental, and ultimately insulting fiction. It's the final, posthumous injury in a long line of them. Let's zoom in on the sheer mechanical absurdity of your existence, the details that the documentaries tend to gloss over. Take your frill. To a human, it looks like a magnificent shield, a solid wall of bone to repel the teeth of a predator. And while it did offer some protection, its primary function was likely thermoregulation and display. It was your billboard, your peacock's tail. It was riddled with blood vessels, meaning a solid bite from a T-Rex wouldn't just be blocked, it would create a catastrophic wound, a fountain of blood. Your greatest defensive asset was also a massive, throbbing liability. It was a masterpiece of flawed design, an evolutionary compromise that screamed, "Look at me. And please don't bite here," in the very same breath. Or consider your gait. For decades, humans depicted you as a sprawling lizard. Now, they depict you as an upright, majestic creature, like a 9-ton rhinoceros. The truth is likely somewhere in between, a semi-sprawled posture that was efficient for low-energy grazing, but mechanically awkward for high-speed running. You were not a graceful galloper. You were a plotter. Your famous charge was probably a short, explosive burst of speed, a terrifying sight to be sure, but one that would leave you winded and vulnerable if you missed your target. You were a masterpiece of good enough engineering. You were just powerful enough, just fast enough, and just well-armed enough to survive most encounters. But elegant, you were not. This mundane reality is the core of your tragedy. You weren't a mythical beast or a perfect killing machine or a gentle giant. You were an animal with all the accompanying indignities and compromises. You got sick. You suffered from parasites. You had bad days where your joints ached and you just wanted to be left alone. You spent the vast majority of your life engaged in the deeply uncinematic activities of eating and sleeping. The dramatic moments, the life or death struggles that define your modern legacy, were terrifying aberrations in an otherwise long and tedious existence. Humanity, in its endless quest for narrative, cannot accept this. They cannot accept the sheer, grinding boredom of prehistoric life. So they have taken the 0.1% of your life that was dramatic and presented it as 100% of your experience. It's a profound disservice to the truth of what it meant to be you. To be a Triceratops was not to be a movie monster. It was to be a biological machine, engaged in the slow, difficult, and often disgusting work of staying alive for one more day. And so, your final resting place is not the soil of the Hell Creek Formation. It is the uncanny valley. You are trapped between the animal you were and the symbol you have become. You are too real to be pure myth, but too mythologized to be seen as purely real. You are a scientific fact that has been co-opted as a cultural fantasy. This strange, hybrid existence is your eternal fate, to be forever studied by the few and forever misunderstood by the many. To have your bones meticulously measured by scientists in lab coats, while your ghost is forced to roar on command for the entertainment of children. It is the price of being iconic, The price of being memorable. The price of having a face with 3 horns. A look so unique that the most unimaginative species on the planet could never, ever forget it, or resist the urge to turn it into a story that was always, ultimately, about themselves.